Hey guys, what's going on? This is Dan. I am joined again with Hunter and Matt. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Fantastic. And we are your Blue Division coaches, and we're going to be going through our Week 5 breakdown for the MDL. Last week we had a little bit of a break as we went through the 6-coach breakdown power ranking for the entire league, but we're back to our regular scheduling program this week. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the battles. The first one we had was Hunter versus Dina, and I thought this was a pretty interesting battle overall. Dina again brought 6 of the 7 normal Pokemon that she brings. So her top 7 are very strong, but she does bring them pretty consistently. And Hunter went with an interesting team, including the Politoed without the Kingdra. So right off the bat, there's some interesting decisions made in terms of the mons that are brought. But looking at this matchup, Dina decided to go with a hard Trick Room mode, at least off the bat. And Hunter, you weren't really expecting that, it didn't seem like. However, game 1, you were playing really well around mitigating its damage. I thought the Scrafty switch-ins to get the Intimidate on the Escavalier was really clutch for you, and I thought you were playing very well. And then there was that crit, which is, it's a trend that does keep happening throughout this week, which is why this week may or may not be cursed. But that crit on the Cinderace, it did matter, and I'm not going to say that game was 100% in your favor if it didn't happen, but you had maneuvered yourself into a position where it was likely favorable, if not guaranteed at that point. Game 2, I'm not really going to get into much detail on, but I think it's fair to say, Hunter, that you got a little tilted at that point and made some suboptimal plays, including forgetting to Dynamax, the big shiny button that's in the middle of your screen most of the time. You forgot to click the button, which I think was crucial for your strategy in that game. But overall, I think that while some RNG did play an effect this week, for you, I think the RNG, you thinking that you got incredibly unlucky, even if it didn't 100% swing the game one direction or another, it just made it from completely in your favor to more roll-based, muddy water hits, rolls, that kind of thing. Really threw you off in your future games, especially game 2. But I don't think there's too much more to say about that. I did think the Scrafty play generally was very good, but the Dina strategy with the Trick Room and then letting it expire and having a fast sweeper behind it, that's kind of the inverse of what I like to do a lot of the time with speed up front and Trick Room in the back. But I did like the sort of inverted take on it, and it's a strategy I would expect to see from her going forward. But what do you guys think about this matchup?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sure, yeah. Like you said, the crit in game 1 was pretty unfortunate. There seems to be a running theme this week with bad RNG. We got our fair share of it over here in the Blue Division, but I think Red Division got it even worse. But yeah, the crit there was was the main piece of RNG that was the deciding factor in one game anyway. Like you said, Dan, it wasn't quite 100% win condition if the Politoed does not get crit there. It's more like 85, because I believe, Hunter, you said you were clicking Muddy Water there. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I clicked Muddy Water.
Okay, and the Politoed was choice specs, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the Muddy Water does KO after the Cinderace was taking some Life Orb chip damage. So it was basically an 85% win chance with for Hunter there. If he had not gotten crit, then he would have gotten the chance to hit a Muddy Water there. Game 2, I think the not maxing the Metagross was an unfortunate error. I assumed it was some kind of a misclick or something when I saw it, but I think she probably still takes that game. It's more just a matter of Hunter saving 1 or 2 differential points if he does click the Dynamax button there. She was going for a Max Darkness and a Hydro Pump into the Metagross. And considering that the Hydro Pump did actually hit, it just got redirected into the Crobat, I believe. But considering that that thing hit, the Metagross I think was going to take too much damage to be able to actually pull it out. It would probably survive, but it's not very well with the double up like that, especially since the rain was up for the Hydro Pump. So I think even without the anomalies here, the weird crit and the forgetting to max the Metagross, I think Dina probably wins if there's a game 3. It's very much up in the air because I think this game was well played on both sides. That's more just a hunch on my end, but it would clearly be a much closer match for sure.
Yeah. So actually, guys, like even though she did crit me with Sucker Punch, I could have definitely cross poisoned the Clefable there and potentially picking up the KO. And then the deal was she was helping handing Sucker Punching, right? So she wouldn't have the helping hand boost with the Cinderace. So she would have to kill my Crobat the following turn with the Sucker Punch in order to live the Brave Bird that was coming her way. So I could have played for differential there, but like Sucker Punch just completely went over my head, and yeah, I didn't attack the Clefable there, or else it would have been potentially a +1 instead of a +2. I mean, either way, the crit was unfortunate, but I still think I was happy with the play that I mean I was happy with my play at least in game 1. And then game 2 I just I was just so tunnel vision. I even forgot to click the big red shiny button in the middle of the screen. So, but that's not even close to discrediting Dina. I think she played great, both games I should say. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
I actually do have a question for you about prep before we move on. Um, since you brought the same 4 to both battles, the Metagross, Scrafty, Crobat, Politoed, I think that was probably your best bet given what Dina had. Um, so I don't think it's weird that you left Snorlax and Appleton on the bench. But given this team composition here, I was a little bit surprised to see them in team preview. Can you give us some insight into what those two were doing there?
Yeah, sure. So I actually thought that Escavalier had a decent matchup against me, so I brought the Snorlax just in case she went Trick Room, and she actually did. I just wasn't expecting it because I saw the Cinderace, Rotom, Clefable, and I was like, oh well, she's not gonna bring Trick Room, right? And then she brought in Snorlax and Appleton, who were both min speed, were behind left behind. So I actually think that in hindsight, I think the Appleton lead game 2 would have been decent because I was Koba Berry. I think it would have been pretty decent. But I didn't bring a Trick Room setter because I felt like Dynamax Snorlax had a decent matchup against her squad. Um, Considering that a lot of the main attackers she had that could affect my main core were special, aside from Cinderace and maybe the Escavalier. But a lot of stuff she likes to bring was special, and I thought that Snorlax had a decent matchup as a Dynamax option. But once I saw the Monza she brought, I thought the Metagross Crobat with the Tailwind was just a better option. And then on top of that, I thought that she would expect the Kingdra, so I actually brought the Specs Politoed, which put in a lot of work damage-wise. That was an AV Escav and did around 40 to 45, so with the Muddy Water. So I thought that was insane. Um, I think it's a little bit slept on as an offensive mon, so I figured I'd kind of let it shine this week. And too bad it got crit, or else it would have shined a little bit more. But it is what it is. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah,
Gotcha, for
belly
sure.
drum Politoed is definitely slept on.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. But moving on, I did think this match was pretty interesting, and that's a little more than can be said about this next match. But Matt, why don't you take us through my match this week?
Okay, so here we have the most RNG heavy match of the week, at least for Blue Division. Um, this was Dan. I believe you sent me your team paste a couple days before you actually played, and I remember. I don't know if this is something you said or if it's something I thought, but it seemed like Trick Room was pretty free. I was looking around to Toxic's draft, and I sort of thought that like Taunt Serena was the sort of the only thing that could could stop the Trick Room, which he didn't even end up bringing. Of course, he brought the Serena just without taunt. But we get into game 1. You go with your standard Trick Room lead with the Tangela and the Cofagrigus. You apparently survive the max overgrowth with a helping hand boost. So everything seems to be going fine, right? And then you get crit, Cofagrigus goes down, and you're left with Tangela, Copperajah, and Primarina against this big Dynamax Serena and no Trick Room. So
Correct.
That was rather devastating because the 4 that you brought to the match, or rather the 3 that were left, just completely fell apart without that speed advantage. So a little bit rough there. I think maybe an Arcanine could have helped. I realized the Serena had a Whiter, which is actually, I think, a very good piece of prep on Toxic's end. But it at least would have helped typing wise, since the Copperajah didn't. It was of course weak to fighting, and I don't think you had Heat Crash on it this week, did you?
I did not. I wasn't able to fit Heat Crash on because I needed the Max Quake for a number of things instead, and then I obviously needed the Max Overgrow for the Blastoise.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and you had Play Rough as well for
yes, for Dragapult.
Mainly for Dragapult here, right? Okay. So
and Conkeldurr.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's an important one. So yeah, that was. It's I hate to say that an entire game was kind of decided by one bad RNG roll, but it sort of feels like that's what it was here. I believe in your commentary during that first game, you said something along the lines of, if Toxic keeps playing correctly here, he's just going to win, and I need him to make a mistake. I think that's probably a pretty good assessment for both games here. I think that we'll get into game 2 in a second, but I think for both games, if the RNG is pretty even or non-existent, and you're both playing correctly, I think, Dan, you probably take this. But it ends up being close, I think. But with the RNG that happened to you both game 1 and game 2, again, as long as you're both playing correctly, which I think you both did, then Toxic takes the game without really. There's not really much you can do about that there. So going into game 2, you do manage to get your Trick Room up. Toxic goes with the Shell Smash Blastoise lead. I really liked the haze on your Cofagrigus. That was a good piece of prep for the Shell Smash Blastoise. But Toxic did a pretty good job of mitigating your damage output during those Trick Room turns. And there was also another unfavorable pieces of RNG for you. There's a crit on your Tangela, which otherwise would not have KO'd, so you would have gotten an extra turn of redirection there while you had Trick Room up, and then there was a Scald crit burn onto your Copperajah a little bit later in the game, which really just sealed it. It just meant that your Copperajah was going to go down to another hit pretty easily the next turn, and it really couldn't do much damage after the burn. So there kind of just wasn't much you could do after that. So bit of an unfortunate game. I think without, like I said, without the RNG, I think it would have been quite a bit closer. I liked your game plan. I think that maybe not bringing the Arcanine was. I understand why you wouldn't want to, but I think given how well the Serena did, in hindsight, it might have been better to have the Arcanine there, if only for the fire typing, since the Serena would had the white herb there. But and I do like Toxic's prep as well. I think the Serena was a good pick. Serena's generally not a Pokemon that I'm a huge fan of. I think it's sort of sort of awkward to use. I find it really difficult to use unless you're scarfing it or maxing it. But in this case, he did max it, at least in the first game, and it did pretty well. And then he played very well with the Blastoise as well, especially when he shell smashed on the last turn of Trick Room, coming out of Trick Room, going for the second shell smash there. I don't think it's super obvious a lot of the time to go for a second shell smash, because it seems like, I think a lot of people get this idea that shell smash is like a one and done kind of thing stuck in their head. So it's not always a super obvious play to go for that, but it was definitely a good play on his part. And I think making both of his Dynamax threats just completely immune to anything that your Tangela wanted to do. Serena, of course, being Grass type, and then he had the safety goggles on Blastoise. I think that those were pretty good ways of making sure that his max turns were not wasted. So I don't think, like I said, I don't think this game came down completely to RNG, because he still prepped well and he still played well, but it definitely sealed things up for him.
Yeah. Hunter, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So I just want to say a couple things. One, I just wanted to commend you for that haze tech on the Cofagrigus, because a tendency that Toxic likes to have is lead either Dragapult, Blastoise with the Clefairy. So you kind of understanding that and seeing that in his gameplay and putting that tech on there was actually pretty sick. Another cool tech that I saw was actually the Misty Terrain, and I know that I think it was you, Matt, who said that you thought Safeguard would have been better. I actually think that Misty Terrain was pretty sick here, because Safeguard and Misty Terrain pretty much do the same thing, for Toxic's team at least. And on top of that, Dan likes to bring the Garchomp, so it's actually weakening the Max Wormwind for a potential Dragapult Garchomp lead matchup type thing. So I thought it was actually pretty sick. But the RNG did play a big factor. And one thing that I really want to commend Toxic on is, like, even though he got good RNG, he realized his win conditions, and he did this both games. He realized that the Serena was really great into what he brought, or Dan brought. He saw that the shell smash, when it was the turn that Trick Room was ending, and he shell smashed, and he was actually last in the bracket. So he actually shell smashed, and then the following turn Trick Room was gone. So then he just, I thought that was a really good play, and I think that understanding your win conditions is something that has been a pretty well-sized criticism of Toxic over this season and last season. I think the move selection and the win condition choice were two big harps on his play, at least. And this game, I see a huge improvement from the beginning of the season to this game, at least. Realized the win condition, maxing Serena in the face of Trick Room. He did get the crit, but game 2 he played great too. Even though he did get some RNG, and I just want to say, when he crit the Caparaja and burned it on the same turn, my heart sank. I was like, oh, dude. I was like, okay, so yeah, that sucks. And I didn't actually see the match. All I read was they were talking about bad RNG, so I didn't actually get spoiled on it at all. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, damn. So, excuse me. So, the RNG did play a big factor, like I said, and like Matt said, but I still want to commend Toxic for taking advantage of the good RNG. And I think Dan mentioned this in his video. I think he said, you can get good RNG, sure, but as long as you make the best plays possible, and like you don't mess up and you take advantage of the RNG, then it's a well-earned win, even if they do get lucky with the RNG. And I totally stand by that. And I think Toxic did take advantage of the good RNG with the max overgrowth crit game 1, and then like the crits and the burn and on the Caparaja. So one more thing I want to add before Dan gets into this game is, I just want to say I love seeing the Caparaja, but it's just so unfortunate that I couldn't do a lot this week. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You're telling me, man.
Yeah, so Toxic, I think, was about as down on himself as one could be after winning 2-0 plus 6 against someone who was top 3 in the most recent power rankings. Because he was saying that he only won because of RNG, and I just wanted to reiterate that is 100% not the case. If RNG puts him ahead of me going through the door, then he just turned around and Samurai kicked me in the chest and slammed the door in my face. Like, he very easily could have misplayed and let me come back into the set, and he did not. So that's to be commended. Like, it's not his fault that he got a crit. Like, that's good for him. So he played very well with the hand that he was given, and I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't lost in all the talk of RNG this week. And discussing the Arcanine, Garchomp Arcanine was actually the last decision that I had to make, and I was sort of a fan of both of them. But the Garchomp set I could bring against a lot of different sets. Same with the Arcanine. Obviously, I had sets for both of them. Garchomp did beat Dragapult Clefairy with the set that I had, and could at least stand a chance against the Blastoise. Whereas if I lead Arcanine against the Blastoise, I basically lose on the spot, which is the reason I brought Garchomp. And I also expected Crocodile this week. Like, Crocodile seemed really good for him this week, so a lot of my prep centered around making sure I'm able to beat that as well. And Garchomp has a better matchup than Arcanine does into Crocodile.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also found it a little bit strange that he didn't bring Crocodile into this particular matchup. But at the same time, I think that he made a lot of team building decisions that did also make sense for the matchup. So, not going to fault him too much for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving into our last match this week, Matt, you beat Charles in a bit of a nail biter where a bit of a miss came in. But Hunter, why don't you cover this one?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the first note I have is Matt, fix your in-game outfit. It sucks. Okay, I just want to see that. No, listen to me. Nope, stop it. Listen to me, because every single game that you go into, everybody is always snazzed up with the suits, or like everybody's always like all snazzed up. You're in there with like your hat and like your matching shirt. That's like something you'd buy at the beginning of the game. Like, come on, like you gotta step it up a little bit. Come on, like just at least a little bit, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Some might call that the ketchup of in-game outfits.
Oh wait. Oh, dude.
Dan, you and I are gonna have to have a talk later.
Oh no. I'm sorry. Okay. So let's just get into the game. So, the first thing that I see here, when I look at the team preview is Ursula, and I'm like, okay, so this is pretty cool. Like you don't really see that much, and it's a pretty. I think it's really strong. It's just on the frailer side, so you got to be really careful with it. But I think people can put it to good use. So, game one. Matt wants to set up Trick Room for that Cursula, so he leads the Fake Out Raichu and the Audino for the Trick Room setup. And after he gets Trick Room up, I think it was a little bit of a surprise factor. I don't think Charles was really expecting the Cursula. Like, who brings Cursula? I don't know. But Matt procced the weakness policy with Cursula, or on Cursula, I mean, with the Shadow Ball from the Audino, which I thought was really smart, and great prep. Assuming that Raichu would go down like while the Trick Room's getting set up, or he could just Volt Switch out. I thought that was really smart. I think Cursula pretty much went in, basically attacked everything and just did what it wanted to. With the mons Charles brought in game one, they really couldn't take many hits from the +2 Cursula, and with Steel in the back, I mean, Matt just kind of won game one off the surprise factor with Cursula, with a +1. So it was actually pretty close. The Corviknight was doing some damage. The Heatran was doing some damage, but so Matt pretty much wins that game off the shoulders of Cursula. So going into game two, Matt leads the same thing, but Charles, I think, made a really solid adjustment. He leads the Corviknight Heracross, and the reason why I think he led the Corviknight Heracross was to double into the Audino with fighting moves, so he could max, and both mons are good Dynamax mons, so I think it was, Matt ended up making the right call, but I think both had the opportunity to Dynamax, so the Fake Out is more of a head scratcher, I think, for Matt, like, who's he gonna max? I don't really know. But
it was a scary turn, I have to say.
Okay, yeah. So, so the Corviknight ended up maxing, and Matt made the right move by faking outing the Heracross. But again, Matt had really good prep. He had the Choppleberry on the Audinos to probably take hits from whoever would carry a fighting move for it. So he ends up getting the Trick Room up. So Matt's put on a little back foot a little bit, if I can say that. So Charles uses coaching with the Heracross onto the Corviknight, and I'm watching this game. I'm like, okay, once his Trick Room's gone, like like I think Corviknight just goes in, right? So even with Steel on the field, I think Matt was in a pretty rough spot, especially if he was special defensive Corviknight, which I actually don't know his set.
He
From
was
top of my
assault
head.
vest.
He was assault vest. Okay, so yeah, he did have some special defense on there. So Matt and Charles pretty much like trade blows for a couple turns until it comes down to like Charles's Heatran Heracross, I believe, and it was versus Matt, Celesteela, and Raichu. So the deal was Charles like close combats the Celesteela and doubles into it with the Heatran too, but he was teching the Magma Storm, and this is where the RNG kind of comes into this game a little bit more. He misses the Magma Storm on the Celesteela, and that would have picked up the game for him because the sun was up, and even though Celesteela was at +1, I think, because he max quaked and he was assault vested, if I'm not mistaken, I still think that kills, even with the sun up and everything. So, it's like you really could blame RNG for this one because Charles adjusted great and played great, and if he ran Flamethrower, he won that game. But I mean, it is what it is. It is Pokemon. And even though Magma Storm wasn't the most accurate choice, I think it has 75% accuracy. Fact check me on that one, but I'm almost positive it's 75% accuracy. I think the move
that's right.
choice. Yeah, okay, thank you. I think the move choice is like okay. Like I don't really think. I mean, the residual damage is nice and like it boosts the max flare damage, but you're just risking the 25% chance of missing. And I think Heat Wave was just a better option. Especially because it's just doubles, but it is what it is, and he thought the Magma Storm was the play. It's just unfortunate that he missed, and overall, it was just a really close set. Charles, like I said, Charles wins if he hits the first Magma Storm into the Celesteela, or if he ran like Flamethrower or something, but and it would have gone to game 3, but it is what it is. I mean, it was a really good set from both players. I thought Matt's game 1 was really solid, and then Charles responded with a pretty strong game 2, and Matt played great in game 2 too. Like I think Charles was just ready for it and had an idea of what he needed to do to win. He had it, he just missed the Magma Storm, so that's really unfortunate. So Matt is at in another note, Matt's at +1 and not +2 because Charles self KO'd with Brave Bird on his Corviknight, so technically Matt didn't pick up a KO on the Corviknight in game 2, I think. It might have been game 1, I can't remember. I have a quick question for Matt. I saw in team preview you had the white herb on Ludicolo. I was actually really curious on what that was for.
That was meant to be that was my main stop to Liepard Heatran. That combination was the main problem for me in prep, I felt. And I know he's used both Fake Tears and Snarl on Liepard before. I thought that I thought Fake Tears here was almost a guarantee, but he turned out not to have it, which was a little bit strange, but I kind of get it now after seeing his point of view on this. But yeah, it was mostly just to make sure I can ignore the drop from either Snarl or Fake Tears, and then Ludicolo can kind of do what it needs to do against Heatran stuff. It was previously Assault Vest. I was kind of playing around with some of these items at the last minute. I really wanted AV on Celesteela mainly for Heatran, but and I figured the white herb allowed me to do kind of what the Assault Vest was able to do, and I could move the Assault Vest over to Celesteela. So that's mainly what it was for. It's just I was trying to find some kind of hard stop to Liepard Heatran.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought the set was pretty interesting overall. Obviously, I love the Curseless set generally, and I think Audino is really cool, even if I don't know what it's doing most of the time. I think it's cool that it's out there, and I'm halfway convinced it's a fairy type, even though I intrinsically know that it's not.
If only.
It looks like a fairy type. But like you were saying, I think the move selection is something that's really important. 75% accuracy moves are really risky to run a lot of the time. Like, I don't even like running Sleep Powder on Tangela that much when I do it, because that just feels like you're inviting RNG in instead of RNG just happening. You're giving more opportunities for it. And that was basically my biggest takeaway from this match, is that move selection was a bigger factor this match than you would have thought it was, just looking at it from 1,000-foot view, and it's something that really mattered, especially on that Heatran.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's I think the first Magma Storm, or the first time the Magma Storm missed in this match, I think I remember saying out loud something like, "Well, that's why you don't run Magma Storm." So it's, you know, it's a little bit, obviously RNG came into play here, and I think it was, I probably had a good chance at actually winning the game, or at winning the set, even if that Magma Storm hit there in game 2 and we went to a game 3, because I think I just had the better mode. It was really hard for him to actually stop the Trick Room, but yeah, I think that's it. It probably just meant that he dropped a game that he otherwise wouldn't have. Personally, I mean, I'm a little biased because I'm obviously the one playing in this match, but yeah, the move choice here was definitely a problem. I don't think he's going to be running Magnum Storm again anytime soon, especially after this match.
Yeah.
He did mention that he was using it over another fire move because he wanted to get some residual damage off on a bulkier, like Leech Seed Stally kind of Celesteela set. I just don't think it's worth it exactly when you're missing 1 out of every 4 of your Magma Storms. Like, the damage is going to be pretty much the same if you're just clicking Flamethrower instead, because you're actually able to reliably hit every single one. So even if it's a little bit less base power and you don't have the residual damage. So I mean, I get the thought process there, but yeah, probably not the greatest choice on his end.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that since I made use of one of my tier 4s finally, I hope that Ryan will be a little bit satisfied, because that was the main con that he put on my slide in the power rankings, that I'm not using my low tier mons quite as much. So now I've used 2 out of 3 of them with the Audino and the Sock. Archeops is yet to come. I brought it to team preview a couple of times in the first couple of weeks, but it'll hit the field at some point, I promise.
Same with Diglett.
Oh, I'm excited to see that.
Diglett could never hit the field. We'll see. But with that being said, let's move ahead into looking at the standings this week. Honestly, not much has changed. There were a lot of upsets, a lot of weird matches this week, but the overall standings look very similar to previous weeks. But does anything really stand out to you guys looking at the standings, besides the, 3-way tie for second in the red division?
Right. Not much really. Yeah, I mean, not much has really changed. Okay, look, I'm not surprised because I know that they're capable, but I'm happy to see Burst in the top half of the standings. I think it's a great redemption arc for Burst. I think we kind of memed about that in the server a little bit, but this is actually the redemption arc. It's coming, okay? Like, I'm telling you, like, Burst is really taking everything we have to say into account, and not getting hurt, but more like, hey, wait, they're really onto something here. Maybe I should pay attention a little bit more. And they've been doing research on different Pokemon, and they've been improving like a lot. So yeah, I'm just happy to see them in the top half. Other than that, no.
Yeah, Grant versus Burst next week is going to be a match to watch that I think will have playoff and wildcard implications.
Most definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. Nothing super surprising to me here. I mean, I think it's interesting that we only have one player left that is X and one. I expected that to be two, but then Dan and Toxic happened the way that it happened. So, but yeah, only one X and one left, which is a little bit interesting. I guess it's the last few times we've looked at these things seem to be a little bit polarized, and I think in some places the those kinds of extreme differences between the top and the bottom have sort of stayed the same, and in some places things have balanced out a little bit, particularly since some winless players have gotten some numbers in the W column there. So some things are evening out a little bit, but that part is a little bit strange. But
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to getting back in the win column after 2 losses in a row, but I've got my bye first before I fight some fool named Hunter in week 7. So we have that to look forward to. But if there's not anything else, thank you guys for watching. We have been your Blue Division coaches. On behalf of Matt and Hunter, this has been Dan, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.